professor of music and piano and music history at the University of Mount Union in Alliance, Ohio. I welcome you to the series Prelude to a Masterpiece. This is the musical journey of my lifetime, to learn and perform Frédéric Chopin's Concerto No. 1 for piano solo and orchestra. This journey will include not only my preparation and sharing of musical clips along the way, but also the perspectives of other faculty, students, and community musicians, and other music lovers along the way. In order to introduce the impetus that sparked this project into being, I invited students to ask questions. In this post, I'll answer the questions of flutist and pianist Natalie Kaufman, music education major at Mount Union, and Noah Stewart, pianist music major with a performance concentration. Natalie asks, do you remember your first ever encounter with this work? Recording, live performance? Was it immediately captivating, or did you adopt this piece as a favorite more gradually? As a dutiful student, during my college years, I purchased many CDs of classical music, especially romantic piano concertos, as that is my favorite era and genre. One of those CDs happened to be pianist Martha Argerich playing Liszt Piano Concerto No. 1 and Chopin Piano Concerto No. 1, with Claudio Abbado conducting the London Symphony. I fell in love with this Chopin concerto from this recording, and it soon became the piece to which I turned in moments of despair. The first movement especially captures heartbreak, my heartbreak, better than any other piece of music I know, and a glorious but heart-wrenching first musical theme. Because those moments of despair represented my grief at whatever situation had driven me to that point, I needed an avenue to pour out my sorrow, but also to heal and find renewed hope for the future. Despite the fact that there are very few sunny moments in the overall turmoiled first movement, the music does not resign itself to the despair of that first theme, but rather it passes through various musical expressions of the stages of grief, unbearable pain, and hope as a fighting spirit rising from the ashes. Natalie also asks if you could select a few adjectives to describe this masterpiece to someone unfamiliar with the emotion that Chopin's compositions evoke. What words would you choose and why? I would choose vulnerable, but strong-willed, emotional, but not irrational, glittering, but not devoid of substance, crushed, but never defeated, despairing, but not for long, heartbroken, but always hopeful, healingly beautiful. Noah asks, what about learning this piece has been the most challenging for you? I think the biggest challenges have been non-pianistic. All the various undergraduate and graduate degree requirements and job requirements that made this non-required piece impractical for so long. All the years that something else was due for school, job, recitals, and I had no time to work on this concerto. All of my injury struggles. About 6 years ago, I discovered after much heartache that although my arms and hands were relaxed in their technique, my sitting position was too far away from the piano, causing much tension in my back. And as I reached my mid-30s, years of accumulated back tension began to transfer to my arms and hands and began to have wrist tendonitis. While correcting my sitting position has been easy, I can't now undo all the years of damage that have already taxed my apparatus, so all I can do is manage my tendonitis flare-ups in the healthiest way, while teaching my students natural back alignment and relaxation so they don't have the same troubles I did. I can no longer practice the several hours a day I used to as a student and as a young professional because my wrists will start hurting. So I'm often forced to slow down my pace of practicing or take breaks for periods of time in order not to injure myself further. As far as the technical challenges of the piece itself, I feel like my excellent education from superb teachers has set me up for success, despite the sometimes daunting demands on the pianist's technique in this piece. Chopin himself was a virtuoso with great mastery of piano playing, and his music challenges pianists in a way that extends what our bodies and instrument can do. But the music's difficulty does not conflict with our body's natural abilities. So the technical challenges in Chopin's music are always satisfying opportunities for growth, rather than frustrating battles with the instrument, as other composers' music can be. Natalie also asks, what pushed you to finally begin learning this piece? It's my understanding that it's one of your favorites and quite difficult. I've wanted to learn this piece since I fell in love with it in college. There's no other piece of music I've heard that describes my emotional structure as closely as the first movement of this piece. But this is not a piece that conductors like to program because the orchestral part is quite scant and at times awkward and provides fairly moderate satisfaction to the orchestra and conductor. Chopin was known as the poet of the piano, and as such, he focuses so much of the soul and substance of this concerto on the piano soloist that orchestras are reluctant to play it. In college and graduate school, I didn't play it because I wasn't sure I was up to the challenge, but even more so because the various degree requirements prevented me from playing such a piece or even dreaming to have an orchestra and conductor that would agree to play it with me. All three of my degrees were earned at large schools, and these sizable programs offered excellent musical education, but juicy opportunities, such as students performing a concerto with orchestra, were very rare, and I did not have the chance to do so. After starting my faculty position at Mount Union in 2005, I enjoyed tremendously that in this small school we have the opportunity to work with a full symphony orchestra. I embraced the chance to work with orchestra for the first time in my life and have always enjoyed the immense yet immensely satisfying challenge of playing concertos with a full orchestra. At first, as I was building the relationship with ASO conductors, I suggested possible concertos to collaborate on, but I didn't push something like the Chopin because I wanted to make sure the experience was as satisfying for the orchestra as possible. So Chopin consistently sat on my back burner, the musical love of my life, yet always impractical to undertake serious study of. Finally, in the last few years, I realized that if I don't make the opportunity happen, it may never happen. So I embraced an idea that I had been toying with for a while. A pianist friend had told me that there's a chamber music version of this piece, in which the orchestral accompaniment is arranged for a string quartet, while the piano solo part remains unchanged. I realized I had built strong collegial and musical partnerships at Mount Union, and that my string colleagues on the faculty may actually agree to play this chamber music version of the concerto with me. It's been a bumpy ride. The original chamber performance, scheduled for March 2020, had to be postponed indefinitely because of family illness and COVID and the pandemic ensuing shutdowns. But one of the few bright sides of this pandemic was the opportunity to inch away at practicing my beloved Chopin once again, as there were no scheduled concerts in sight or other looming deadlines. And my extraordinary joy at finally beginning to master portions of the music that means more to me than any other I was bursting with desire to share this joy with others. So I took a few informal recordings of playing various excerpts of the first movement, and I shared them on YouTube. It was this urge to share my musical joy that eventually blossomed into this Prelude to a Masterpiece series. Significantly, in the midst of the 2020 madness, Eric Benjamin, the music director of the Alliance Symphony, also agreed to program the piece with the full orchestra. And so the light at the end of the "no concerts allowed" tunnel became clear. I was now preparing to share this beautiful work, first in its chamber version, and shortly after in its original version for piano and full orchestra, at whatever point the pandemic will allow us to do so. And to continue to share the joy along the way, I have received full support from the ASO and Mount Union to document my journey toward these performances in this series of posts. So be on the lookout via the ASO and Mount Union websites and social media for more highlights to illustrate the learning stages of the piece, from the inspiration to the musicians involved, student perspectives, and rehearsal process, along with clips of the music at every stage. If the pandemic allows us to perform safely, the chamber group version of the piece will be performed early fall 2021, with the ASO full orchestral version to follow in October of 2021. So stay tuned to our monthly series, Prelude to a Masterpiece, for more about the piece, musicians involved, including Mount Union faculty and students, as well as community members, and for teaser clips of the music as it begins to take shape and come to life in its journey to the performance. In the meantime, check out this informal clip from the beginning of my adventure with this piece.